Q&A on my prep for the Ironman 70.3 that's going to be happening in the Philippines on March the 2nd. When you're doing conventional weight training, you've obviously got recovery days in between, right? You can obviously split things to make sure that you're really not causing a high amount of stress to the central nervous system, which then obviously leads to increases in hormonal activity and especially your hunger and your cravings. But then all of a sudden what happens is that you do these 3 weight training sessions and then you're adding in 1 to 2 sessions a day on the days in between. You're doing yoga as well in the morning. So your output is extremely high, right? The demands on the body, when you are doing conventional weight training versus Ironman and endurance work, the demands go from 20% to 120%, right? The body needs so much more. So I think number 1 is just tracking calories burned, right? And just making sure that you're obviously getting those back in. You don't want to find yourself in a deficit, and you don't want to find yourself in a big deficit either by overtraining, undereating, because then what's going to happen is that you're actually not getting enough fuel to facilitate optimized performance and optimized recovery. So I think the most important thing firstly is having a tracker, right? I use a Whoop. And having that, track the calories burnt and just making sure that, you're eating back those calories, but you're eating them back in nutrient-dense foods, right? This is not I burned 2,000 calories through training, I'm gonna go have a pizza, or I'm gonna go and have a burger and chips. I really try and make sure that I get in as much nutrient-dense, fibrous, high-protein food. So loads of fruits, loads of veggies, loads of protein. Hydration is obviously one of the most important things as well, right? So if you're going to be dropping all this water while you're training, dropping these salts, making sure that you're also staying well hydrated. So a lot of coconut water, for example, electrolytes. I'm really big on obviously micronutrient intake. So as I mentioned, fruits, veggies, all the goodies, but supplementing the rest as well is very, very important. But then when it comes to the training itself, like the pre and post, I think I'll do a separate video on that for you guys, because obviously there's a lot that one can do pre-training session, and now depending on if it's a swim, if it's a cycle, if it's a run, if you're going to be going for 1 hour, if you're going to be going for 2 hours, if you're going to be going for 3 hours, there's definitely a lot of different protocols that one can put in place where you look at potassium, you look at sodium, you look at let's say getting carbohydrates every 20 to 30 minutes depending on how long the duration of your workout is. So there's so many different core elements that one needs to actually consider when doing this type of training, that it isn't a black and white, train more and then just eat more. You need to keep track of numbers. Of course, you're a high performance machine at the end of the day, right? So you need to make sure that you're getting in high performance fuel, and that you obviously have a great understanding of what's going out also needs to go back in. And then of course, if let's say you're prepping for a race, then you need to prep in advance. So going through a carb loading phase, I normally go through, and I'll do another video on this for you guys. I think it's really important to kind of elaborate and expand on this, but for this purpose, it is just good to obviously acknowledge that, if you are going to be going through, let's say I know next month my training is going to double up, right, in terms of intensity, there's going to be a lot more stress on the body. It's maybe a good idea that I start loading those carbs and calories this month already on a very small level, but at least start replenishing the body and maybe going into a slight surplus to make way for obviously that high amount of output that's coming up. But that's just another strategy. I think when you're a little bit more advanced in your journey, these are things that do need to be considered. But once again, high performance machine, high performance fuel, and of course you need to let the engine cool down at the end of the day and also make sure that you're taking time off. So when it comes to the training leading up to an Ironman, you actually want to be deloading, right? You want to be deloading with the training, putting less stress on the body so you can go into race day feeling ready, feeling energized, feeling recovered. And at the same time, nutrition strategy needs to actually be loading yourself up more so that you also then have high amounts of energy, high amounts of glycogen storage in the body so that you can perform as best possible on race day. I hope that answers your question. So I think my biggest piece of advice for that would be to not undermine or underscore the importance of nutrition, right? Most people think that it's all training. The more that I train, the faster I'm going to become, the better the result, the better the time. Sure, but if you are not supplementing your nutrition correctly, if you are not keeping tabs on the calories burnt, if you're not making sure you're getting in the right amount of protein for the amount of muscle tissue, for the amount of working out that you're doing, this is a mathematical equation, right? If you're focusing so much on time per kilometer, time per race and pace, right? You need to look at numbers when it comes to your nutrition as well, right? You can't just fuck around. If you get a fuck around approach, you're gonna get a fuck around result, right? For you to become the athlete that you wanna be, for you to cross that finish line knowing that you gave 110%, nutrition needs to be a strategy, right? You need to look at it with a fine comb. Are you getting in an optimal amount of fuel through carbohydrates, through fats, right? You also need a high amount of fats. This is good for hormonal function. You improve your hormonal function, you improve your performance, you improve your recovery in and out of the gym, right? So the most important thing is to just really make sure that you're spending all this time, effort, and energy on your training. Spend the same, if not even more time on your nutrition strategy. And if you're having troubles with that, you need the help, you need a professional involved, let me know. I am obviously someone who is in the right place and space to help someone like you who wants to get clearer on their goals, but also clearer on the strategy to reach those goals and cross the finish line. My running has improved. That's it. Like, you know, okay, let me take this back. There's definitely a lot of people that are inherently conditioned to running, especially if you look at like a lot of African athletes, right? They are much better runners than 99% of, you know, people that enter these races. But, you know, for me, I was definitely not born with that running genetic. Bone structure wise, I mean, if you look how ugly my feet are, you know, these are not runner's feet. I've got really bad bunions. Okay, back up here. Thank you. We don't have to spend time on that. But, you know, yeah, my feet are definitely not runner's feet. So, you know, in the beginning, I had a lot of inflammation, a lot of discomfort, especially in my joints and my bones. So that's been, I think, the one adaptation that I've definitely seen improve a lot with a lot of the endurance work, is that my feet are now able to carry me a lot longer and a lot more pain-free, right? So there's a lot more conditioning in the feet and in the bone structure. That would be adaptation number one. And then I think this would be due to me giving up vaping, right? That was a really big one for me. I was doing a lot of endurance work and aerobic work and still vaping. And I think since stopping vaping, I've seen a massive improvement on my cardio output, right? I'm actually, you know, I'm not gassed out. My lungs feel great. My smell is a lot better. My pathways are a lot more open. So I think that was, you know, part of the adaptation of just becoming a lot more conditioned. I don't know if it was just me doing lots of the aerobic work that led to that conditioning, but at the same time, obviously giving up smoking was a massive one for me. So that would be the second adaptation. Just lung capacity is amazing, you know, and I think that is definitely due to yoga. It's due to doing breath work outside of a lot of this aerobic work, and also weight training, right? So just kind of having that all-rounded approach for me, and a holistic approach to the endurance work has definitely been, you know, massive on my body adapting to be able to handle the intensity. I'm a big fan of yoga. I know that it really helps a lot when it comes to my mobility, my core strength, you know, and obviously flexibility is a big one when it comes to your weight training, but also endurance work, right? So yoga is really big for me. I do that 3 times a week, and I will do that at about 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning. I won't eat before. I might just have a coffee with a little bit of MCT oil in that. And then we'll get the yoga done. Depending on how warm I feel, I might actually go into one of my aerobic workouts right off the bat. So do a little bit of yoga, head straight to the gym, and maybe get like a 5K run or 10K run, and depending on what is planned in for the day, or one of my weight training sessions. So I'll always do yoga, and then off the back of that, go and do one of my training sessions for the day. If, let's say, it's a day where I only do yoga and my weight training, great, box them off at once, and then I've got the rest of the day to obviously de-stress and minimize the amount of strain that the body is under, and already go into recovery mode. So from that point onwards until I go to sleep, no more activity. I've gotten my output. As long as I get my steps in as well throughout the day of 10,000 steps, then we're good to go. If let's say it's an aerobic day, right? So one of the alternating days, I would do one of my endurance-based trainings in the morning. So it might be I'll do a swim in the morning. Reason I like to do a swim in the morning is because when it's actually when the least amount of people have been in the pool, right? So that's actually when the pool's the cleanest. So I like to make sure that I get that in nice and early. Firstly, it's over and done with, but also that I'm not swimming in piss. And then I will come back in the afternoon or evening for either my cycle or my run. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday will always be weight training and yoga, and then Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays will be my swim, cycle and run days.